HerSport's AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. Think of the possibilities.
Hello and welcome to this episode of HerSport's AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. Think of the possibilities. You can catch up on this episode and every episode in the series on YouTube and our social channels, or listen to the podcast on every podcast app. Get involved in the conversation with us on Instagram and Twitter using the hashtag HerSport.AIL. I'm once again joined in studio by my co-host Hannah Tyrell. Hannah, before we get into where the league table stands, one of the major talking points was obviously the debut of Beibhinn Parsons. 3 tries in the first half, 2 in the second half. So just the 5 tries for her on her debut. What did you make of her performance?
Yeah, look, I think everybody, or nearly everybody, has seen the highlights so far, and we're going to have a little look at them. But, you know, it's just incredible to have players like Beibhinn Parsons taking part in the Energia AIL League. And it's players like her and other internationals who really raise the standard. And, you know, she is just such a talent. And it's incredible to think that it's her debut for Blackrock in the Energia AIL, considering she's played for Ireland so many times already. And yeah, look, 5 tries is phenomenal. You know, sometimes with wingers in particular, they maybe get on the end of tries and they're great team tries, but as we'll see in some of these clips, you know, some of these tries she scored are all individual solo efforts. And yeah, we're just very, very lucky to be able to witness a player of her calibre. And I still think the best is yet to come with her. She's still so young, and I think a lot of people forget that, you know, forget how young she is, and she's still developing and still learning the game. But Blackrock have a gem on their hands, and you know, she's a danger for any team that comes up against her.
And she was obviously released to play this game, so people maybe who are watching or listening might not know what that actually means. She obviously wasn't sitting on this bench the whole time just asking to be put on. So can you just explain, like, why was this her debut?
Yeah, so this her you know, this was round 4 of games, so the first time that Beibhinn and many of the other Irish Sevens players have been released so far. So Irish Sevens players are contracted players, it being part of an Olympic sport, and so their main job, I suppose, is to train and play on the World Series for the Irish Sevens team. And because that is such a demanding job, but also they play tournaments very, very frequently, and they often clash with the club side of the game, and so they don't get to play in the Energia AIL as much. So there is a little bit of a break since the World Cup has happened. That's why they obviously weren't playing the first couple of rounds, because they were taking part in South Africa in the World Cup. And there's a little bit of a break till Dubai starts in early December. So the players have been given a couple of weeks to go back and play and train with their clubs on the 15 side of things, and I think it's excellent to have them. As I said, I think they raised the standards, and you know, we saw not just what Beibhinn could do last weekend, but the likes of Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe and Eve Higgins were playing with Railway. Aaron King was playing with Old Belvedere, so and there was a couple of others around the place. But yeah, they're great for the league. It's great for Ireland to get them playing as much as possible, whether that's club rugby 7s or 15s, and yeah, I look forward to watching them again now in this weekend's round of games.
And do you think it had a big effect on scores and the league? Obviously, Beibhinn, as we'll see with her tries, she put 5 tries on the board. So how does it affect the actual table?
Yeah, well, look, obviously you have a player like Beibhinn Parsons in your team. She's definitely going to make a big impact for you, and that's what you want your Irish internationals to do, to come in and make a difference and kind of be those leaders, you know, whether that's vocally or actually physically, with your performances on the pitch. But they just, by coming in themselves, they have so much knowledge of the game from all the training that they're doing themselves, you know, and they're getting top level coaching. So not only are they bringing their physical ability in, but they're bringing all that knowledge. They're giving these confidence boosts to all their club teams, and then, you know, their performances on the pitch lead to, in most cases, the right outcome for their team, and that's obviously going to impact results and then standings. And you know, Blackrock, I'm sure we're very grateful to have her and Megan Burns as well, who was back for them playing this weekend, and it's given them a nice timely boost.
And we'll have a look then at Beibhinn's tries from the weekend.
So just looking from a defensive point of view, we can't actually see Beibhinn within the screen, but this is the Galwegians scrum, and they chose to kick, and unfortunately wasn't quite executed. Megan Burns reading the play really well, and Beibhinn playing winger just is able to pick up that loose ball against a scramble defence now from Galwegians, and she just used her incredible footwork and that handoff that we know about so well to beat those few players, and it's her explosiveness and her pace that gets her over the line. And you know, I think she beats, you barely see it happen so quick, but she beats 5 or 6 players in quick succession there. As I said, the kick chase wasn't brilliant. The kick itself, I know Nicole Fowley wouldn't be too happy with that, but it's incredible, and to get that score under the post is huge. And again, here we see a clearance from Nicole Fowley, a pretty good one this stage, but again, Blackrock are ready for it and set up, and Beibhinn Burns again makes herself available. Beibhinn pops up in midfield, and this is just pure pace and power. She outruns 3 or 4 players and has the ability to use footwork to get around the sweeper Mairead Coyne, you know, in Ireland, a former Ireland international herself, and manages to dot down for her team. And 2 clearances, and you know, kicking teams will have to be very, very wary of Beibhinn in the backfield for that one. So here we see a dominant Blackrock scrum. Doesn't quite go to plan though once the ball comes out, but Blackrock managed to keep it alive, and Enya Breen carries up really, really strongly, and we already know Megan Burns come off her wing there, and beautiful skip pass out to Beibhinn. Probably the easiest try she's scored in this lot, but again, still had a bit of work to do to beat the sweeper on the edge, and that infamous handoff, and this is their hat-trick before half-time. As I said, incredible to have. And
Beibhinn Parsons, yesterday we had International Day of the Girl. Beibhinn Parsons is one of those people that girls look up to. She'll be a role model for years to come, and as you said there, she is still so young as well.
Absolutely, like, you know, Beibhinn Parsons is one of those players that doesn't come around too often, and as I said, I don't think we've seen the best of her yet, and you know, she's scoring tries for fun here, you know, and as I said, they're not just she's on the end of a team try. The first 2 tries she scored the weekend were incredible solo tries, and showing off her skill, her pace, her footwork, her handoff, which I know she's really been working on a little bit. And as I said, wouldn't you love her in your team? And love to have her as a teammate, hate to have her as an opponent.
And her first match, but yet she's already on that points scoreboard. Can you tell us what that looks like at the moment?
Yeah, so 1 game in, 5 tries, and Beibhinn's gone straight to the top of the leaderboard, joint leaderboard with Leisha McGonigal of Galwegians and also Carmen Rodrera of Railway Union as well. But look, 5 tries in 1 game, you know, you're always going to be up there, but let's hope that she'll be released to play a lot more games throughout the league, because she's such an exciting player and such a fun player to watch. We know that she's going to make things happen.
And now I suppose to get into the important part, the actual results. We've seen there Blackrock, so we'll start with them. 36 win, over 19 points though. Do you think it was going to be more?
We talked about this in the last show, that Blackrock hadn't been massively challenged so far, and they weren't really massively convincing winners as we may have seen them in the past, and Galwegians had been a team really on the up and playing really good rugby, and so we knew that this was going to be a really, really good battle to see, you know, were Blackrock the same team as last year, were they better, and whether Galwegians would be able to be up to the challenge. I did think Blackrock would win, but I'm not surprised that Galwegians gave them a bit of a scare in some ways. You know, I think Blackrock would be very grateful they had Beibhinn back, because she scored 5 out of the 6 tries. Yeah, because when you think
about it, Blackrock on that day without Beibhinn, obviously, of course, other tries could have been scored, but she made up 25 of their points, so Galwegians really did put it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, look, Galwegians, as we said, they've been high flying. At one point in this game, we saw it was 14 points apiece, so you know, it wasn't a one-sided or an easy game for Blackrock. You know, they scored 6 tries, Beibhinn got 5 of them. Galwegians really went for it. They have the top point scorer in the league in Nicole Fowley. They went to her boot a couple of times. She scored a couple of penalties over the course of the game, and they got 2 tries themselves. They also have a joint top scorer in Leisha McGonigal. So, you know, they're a team to be reckoned with, and I think Blackrock will just be happy that they came out of it with a bonus point win in the end.
And then Ballincollig and Wicklow, a draw result there. Were you surprised at it?
Yes and no. I suppose I did think Wicklow might scrape through, considering Ballincollig unfortunately have been a little bit weaker than I thought they would have been this year. But I did speak about how Fee Hayes would have been really gearing up her side to try and get something out of this game, and this was a huge opportunity for them to get some points on the board. a draw result you don't see too often in rugby, but 2 tries apiece from both teams. I think Ballincollig will be happier with their performances. Heather Kennedy and Michelle O'Driscoll getting the tries for them, and they'll just be happy to get some points on the board. I think Wicklow will feel like they left this one behind them. The last round, they really put it up to UL Bows, who haven't been the high flyers really that we've seen in the past, and they lost out to them marginally the last game. I really thought they'd come into this with a lot more confidence and kind of blow Ballincollig away, but again, they'll be happy to get some points on the board, but they'll feel like it was points dropped in their case.
And then 2, I suppose, more high scoreboards, differences in it. We had Belvo, lucky for you, with a high scoreboard over Cook, 65-0. We don't like to see it, but why do you think it happened here?
Yeah, look, Belvedere are doing really, really well this year. They're top of the table for a reason. They've played 4 games, won 4 games. You can't really ask for much more from them. Unfortunately, Cook just weren't up to the standard. They weren't ready for the pace or the intensity of Old Belvedere. And Old Belvedere are really, really strong across the park. They're not just relying on 1 or 2 players here and there. In every position, they're really, really strong. And we talked about their youth in the last game, and again this weekend their youth really stepped up, and we had the likes of Emma Tilley, Aoife Dalton, Erin King released from the Sevens programme, all getting on the score sheet. Aoife Whelan doing really well for them there at 9, and then they're like planted in there as Jenny Murphy, Dervla Nicovard with plenty of experience, and Tanya Rosser and Johnny Garth have them playing some great rugby, and it's great to see, and I just can't wait for the big clashes against the likes of Railway and against the likes of Blackrock, to really see where they're at and see who comes out on top. For Cook, unfortunately, things just aren't going their way, and they wouldn't have targeted this game as a game that they were looking to get points out of. I'm sure they were looking for a much better display than what they gave, but they'll be looking at other games like the Ballincollig game, the Wicklow game, and maybe even the UL Bows game to try and get some points on the board and move up the table a little bit.
And then Railway and Suttonians, 78-5. So Suttonians at least got some points on the board there, but what did you make of that match?
Yeah, look, Suttonians actually scored first, and for a little minute there you go, oh, is there a shock on the cards?
Yeah.
But maybe Railway just were a little bit slow starters, and kind of got caught ball watching a little bit, but they came firing at the blocks, and some incredible scores from them over the course of the weekend. As I mentioned, they do have joint top try scorer Carmen Rodrera there from Spain. She's playing 6 for them at the minute, but she has incredible pace for her position. She scored a couple of tries the weekend, so she's joint top try scorer with 5 points. They also had the returning Eve Higgins, Katie Heffernan, and Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe coming into their backline. Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe showed all her pace and power to score a couple of tries over the weekend. Incredible player to have on their team. She was the top try scorer in the World Series in the 7 Series last year, which is an incredible feat in itself. So for Railway to be able to have her, Eve Higgins, Katie Heffernan coming back, along with the likes of, I know she's injured at the minute, but Anna McGann and that to come in. They were missing Stacey Flood, they were missing Nikki Caughey, they were missing Aoife Doyle. So the strength and depth in their squad is incredible at the minute.
And then with all that in mind, just talk us through then what the table looks like. Belvo are obviously still there at the top.
I'll try and hide my delight from that one. But yeah, look, as I said, Belvo have really been the pace setters at the minute. 4 from 4, they're scoring tries for fun. Their defence looks fairly resolute, and haven't given up too many tries, and it's up to the chasing back to try and catch up to them, I suppose. Blackrock and Railway are right behind them. Obviously, they've played 1 game less, so it'll be interesting to see, as we said, when those 2 teams meet Belvedere, who comes out on the right side of it. But yeah, it's all up in the air. It's wide open at the minute between those 3 teams. So we'll be looking later on in the rounds, and that will really shape the table for us.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about the way the matches have worked out, is every week it's kind of getting a bit different. Some matches you kind of know who might win, and then others you've no idea until it gets closer to that final. Yeah,
and I suppose that's the beauty of sport. Like, you look at Galwegians, probably never really in the mix. or competing massively last year, and they would have been disappointed with their performances, whereas this year they're one of the teams that have improved the most and are really putting it up to the usual, say, or last year's top 4, and that's what you want to see. And the likes of Blackrock aren't getting it all their own way. Railway still dominating. Old Belvedere probably weren't too happy with their performances in some games last year, but they're really stepping up now, and that's what you want. You want a competitive league, you don't want to see too many one-sided scores. So I'm really hoping as the years progress in the Energia AIL that all these teams really start to develop youth and systems coming through, so that we have a more competitive league and we don't see, what whitewashes or washouts in each game.
And Galwegians, they were obviously unfortunate to have dropped slightly their position in the leaderboard, but we're actually going to have a bit of a deep dive into something they did quite well on the day, which was their lineouts. For those of you listening to this episode, you can catch the highlights that we'll be discussing on our YouTube, or have a look online at the highlights from the games, all of course brought to you by Energia. So Galwegians, they had their lineouts. We saw, I suppose, some classic moves like dummy jumps, their mauls. But I think what people forget is they're going up against a defensive lineout that's quite strong. The likes of Laura Feely's in there, Emma Hubin, Emer Curry, and yet they still managed to win most of their lineouts and get that ball out to their back line.
Yeah, look, I think while Galwegians would be disappointed that they didn't win the game at the weekend, as most teams would be, I think they'd be very pleased with some of the performances that they've done. They really put Blackrock on the back foot at times. They played a really nice territory game. They probably want to clean up a little bit of their kicking, particularly if they're kicking to Beibhinn Parsons, but they did try and play a territory game and use their skills to their advantage with Nicole Fowley there. But yeah, their line-out was really impressive, and I thought they did quite well. Their tries came out from that. They were on their 5-metre line, and they played a nice little ball to the front, and then a 1-2 with the back to the hooker to score in the corner and to even it up, which is really nice. Molly Walsh getting on the end of that, and they'll just be looking at how they can tweak their game a little bit, but taking confidence from their line out, from their set piece, and then trying to improve on little things from there. But as I said, been really impressed with Galwegians. They'll be really looking to improve their game and squeak into that top 4.
And another aspect that we noticed was quite good as well, Railway's set piece. Just talk us through that. How did they do so well with it?
Look, I just think Railway in general played a fantastic game. As I said, Suttonians scored first, and unfortunately Suttonians' ill discipline throughout the game cost them. They ended up having 2 yellow cards, which against a team with the quality and calibre and depth that Railway have, they're always going to hurt you and punish you on that. But if you're to look at the Railway backline, it's a backline full of internationals. With the returning Katie Heffernan at 15, they had Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe. They had Niamh Byrne, their captain at centre, who I think is an extremely promising player. She's an Irish Sevens international, and she's been called into the 15 squad recently. Hasn't been capped yet, but I definitely think she's worth having a look at. Eve Higgins came in there at 12. They had Ailsa Hughes at 9. They're just an incredible team, and the depth they have, as I mentioned, they have still have the likes of Aoife Doyle to come back in there. Nikki Caughey at the minute out injured. Stacey Flood hasn't been released from Sevens. Again, don't know if that's an injury issue or whatever else, but to have the calibre of these players to come in is incredible. And then even in the wider squad in general, they have the likes of Lindsay Peat, Chloe Blackmore, Aoife McDermott, I mentioned Carmen Rodrera, Anna McGann's injured at the minute, Claire Bowles, another international. They're just stacked, Katie O'Dwyer. I could
even
continue to name
as
these.
you're saying this though, you can imagine as a player on the opposite team, the team sheet comes out, and what are you thinking knowing you're playing a game of defence really for this 80 minutes?
Yeah, look, and I suppose with all those players, if I meant that back line I mentioned, I didn't even mention Molly Scuffle-McCabe also started there. Leah Tarpey played her first game for Railway, a very recent Ireland international, and it's incredible to have that strength and depth there. But what they also bring by being teammates at an international level is that understanding of playing with each other and how each player likes to play. That trust is there in terms of defence and everything else. And it's very daunting lining up on the opposite side, knowing you have to defend against an all international backline, you know, that are well able to play. They're all well able to pass, tackle, you know, ruck, whatever. And
you're not going to get a soft shoulder off any of them.
And you know that every play is going to be difficult, and every game that they go out there, they obviously want to do really well for their club, but in the back of their mind, they also want to show that they're good enough to get that Irish jersey back, and that it's a very daunting thing. And as I said, they have that chemistry together from playing with Ireland. They have that trust in each other. They know exactly how they like to play, and it's why their set piece is so strong. They have a really strong base. They scored 4 tries at the weekend from scrum alone, knowing they have a really good base from the likes of Lindsay P, Chloe Blackmore, and Aoife McDermott in there in the tie 5, and then when it gets out to the back line, you've just star quality out there. Like it's incredible. So that's why I'm really excited to see some of the matchups when we see the likes of Railway against Old Belvedere, or Railway against Blackrock, or Belvedere against Blackrock, because the back lines in particular will have some star players that'll have to come up against each other, and that's where you really see the top tier players stand out.
And looking ahead then to next week, a game I think will prove very interesting. Old Belvo and Galwegians. What do you think that'll turn out like?
Well, again, look, as we said, Old Belvedere, they're the current leaders at the minute. They're high flying. They've a great blend of youth and experience there, and Galwegians are the most improved team we've seen so far. So Galwegian will be able to prove a point again that, you know, their start hasn't been a fluke, and that they're well able to mix it with the top teams. And Old Belvedere will be looking to just stay on top and make it 5 from 5, and their home game, you know, so that'll be a really interesting one to see. So I'm really looking forward to that. I think Old Belvedere might just nick it, but it wouldn't surprise me if Galwegians got an upset.
And given the amount of names you've just called out, the next match, Cook and Railway, it might be a hard one then for Cook, you'd imagine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a difficult weekend again for Cook, which is unfortunate, because you don't like to see teams, you know, each week going out knowing that potentially they're not going to win it. But what I do like about Cook is that regardless of the result, they do keep fighting for the 80 minutes, and they won't give Railway anything easy, but look, with the quality that Railway have, it should be an easy enough or a relatively easy win for them.
And then UL Bows and Blackrock, what do you think will happen there?
I hate to say it, but I haven't been as impressed by UL Bows as I've seen them in the past. So, you know, while Blackrock haven't been at their absolute best, Blackrock will still have the likes of Enya Breen and Beibhinn Parsons and Megan Burns in their backline. And considering the way UL Bows have played, Blackrock should tear them apart. But if UL Bows play a very, very clever game, particularly with their territory, and just be careful of kicking into the backfield, they should do all right. They are the home team. They'll be looking for a huge improvement since their last game. So we'll see how they go. They've had an extra week now to try and recuperate and fix a few mistakes that's been going on.
And then two teams who I think will both be really wanting the win here, Wicklow and Suttonians. Who do you think is going to get it on the day?
Again, Wicklow, as I said, will be disappointed from their draw last week. They've some quality players as the Roberts sisters, and even Drumma hopefully will be back for them. But, excuse me, I still think Suttonians are playing a really, really nice brand of rugby, that offloading game, that high tempo game, and they've some quality players in there again. With the sevens players released, Kate Farrell McCabe should be playing for them at the weekend. Shannon Toohey also is playing with them. Mary Healy all in and around the Irish setup. So Suttonians should win this, but you never know. You know, Wicklow could make their home ground a fortress, and they might sneak the win.
For this weekend then, what game do you think is going to be the most interesting one to watch? If people on Saturday are thinking which one to go to, what would you advise?
I would go, and I'm not just being biased, I would go Old Belvedere and Galwegians, just because of Old Belvedere playing really nice rugby. They've some really great young players, and I've been really impressed with the likes of obviously Dana O'Brien, second in the point scoring chart. Her kicking's been incredible, but the likes of Emma Tilley's been a great young player for them. Aoife Dalton, Erin King is around, a great little back row to have. So Old Belvedere against Galwegians, you know, it might be a battle of the kickers with Nicole Fowley and Dana O'Brien there, but yeah, I think that's the pick of the games for the weekend.
For the weekend. Well, we'll leave it there then. Thank you for tuning in to the third episode of HerSport's AIL Rugby Show, brought to you in association with Energia. Think of the possibilities. A reminder that you can catch up on this episode and every episode in the series on YouTube and our social channels, or listen to the podcast on every podcast app. Keep involved in the conversation and we'll see you in the next episode.
HerSport's AIL Rugby Show, brought to you by Energia. Think of the possibilities.